Alright, this is the second day for inverse, and we're just going to be doing basically the same thing with one addition. And that addition is related to something you did in Algebra 1. In Algebra 1, when you had a graph, if that graph was something like this, and I'll just use a V-shaped graph in absolute value, this would pass what we call the vertical line test, because when you draw a vertical line, it only hits the graph once. So it's what we define as a function. However, if I were to draw a graph that looks like this, if you were to draw a vertical line, it would hit the graph more than once. So each x can only have one y, and this x right here that we're drawing a vertical line through has two different y values, here and here. So because it has two different y values, it's not a function. So the horizontal line test says that if you draw a horizontal line through a function, so here's the original function, f of x. If you draw a horizontal line and it hits more than once, see how this one hits twice, that means the inverse is not a function. Why would the inverse not be a function? Well, the inverse of this parabola would be a sideways parabola, and the sideways parabola wouldn't pass the vertical, so therefore it would not pass a horizontal line test. And that's all it is. Everything else that we're doing is the same as yesterday. So something like this, where I take this function, x squared, just the parent function, but x has to be greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to take this function as it is, y equals x squared, and I'm going to reverse x and y, so x equals y squared. So how I solve? I take the square root of both sides. So it would be plus or minus x. If it was plus or minus x, if it was both, that means I would have a full parabola, and the inverse, which is plus or minus the square root of x, would be a full sideways parabola. This would not be a function. See, the original does not pass the horizontal line test. But that's not what we have here. What we have here is the parabola, but only when it's greater than or equal to 0. And you can see the graph down here. It's only the right side of the parabola, the blue line here. It's not the full parabola, because if it was a full parabola, it would not pass the horizontal line test. It's just half of one. And you can see in pink, here's the square root. And notice it's only the positive square root, not the negative, because again, we only have one part of that parabola. And it's all because of this stipulation here. Now, if that stipulation isn't there, then we would have a full parabola, a full sideways parabola, and the inverse would not be a function. And then here's another example, and this is just like the ones we did yesterday. If I solve this, when I switch x and y, and then I solve for y, I get this. So here's the original function, 2 times x to the third plus 1. Does this pass the horizontal line test? Absolutely. Anywhere you draw a line, it's only going to hit once. So that means the inverse is a function, and this is the inverse function down here.